Hey, welcome to Thoughtseize Interviews, the show where we seize the thoughts of our guests while playing games of Magic the Gathering at the same time. I'm Lucas. With me, as always, is my co-host, Zachary Cole Smith, and today we're joined by George Clarke of Deafheaven. George, thanks for being here with us.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. George, we ask all our guests, are you familiar with Magic the Gathering at all?
Loosely, Shiv, our guitar player, has dabbled, and I have some familiarity through our tour with Dive. I will say, when I posted about it yesterday, I got a few fan responses that were like, "Oh, like you play," and I had to sorely kind of let them down. Just like, I'm here for the interview, but I like to watch.
That's good. That's good. We like to have all different ranges of people. Our last guest, um, as I was telling you before, is like a professional Magic player, and it's nice to have just sort of the whole spectrum of people whose their engagement with the game is totally different.
Yeah, this is a community building exercise we're doing here.
That's exactly right.
Well, I love it. I love it. I love being able to watch it as well. It's great.
Cole, do you want to talk about this beautiful deck that we've built for George here?
Yeah, so every episode we build a kind of a custom deck for our guest. We've it just kind of depends on who they are, like their body of work, whatever. So for you, George of Deafheaven, there's basically I was trying to think of like colors. There's 5 colors in Magic. There's blue, white, black, red, and green. So you have a song called Black Brick, as well as a song called Baby Blue and Canary Yellow. That's the color suite of songs. So there's no yellow, but the closest is white, which has kind of like this like yellowish thing. So anyway, we went with black, white, blue. We're playing Esper Gifts Control. There's this card here, Gifts Ungiven, from your song Gifts for the Earth. So that the best we could do.
This is so thorough.
And there's a one of card here called Glint, which is a fucking not a good card, unfortunately. But yeah, we're just gonna basically the point of this deck is we put these big creatures in our graveyard and then use Goryo's Vengeance to bring them back, and we'll see how we do. So I'm gonna fire it up right now.
Cole, chat says my audio is a little weird, a little metallic sounding. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that.
It's metal, baby.
But George, we also ask all our guests about their experience with the world of fantasy and gaming in general. And I don't know about. I haven't heard you talk about either of those things. I actually kind of think of you as something of a Luddite. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, super fair. Yeah.
So what about fantasy novels, sci-fi novels, any of that shit ever work its way into your?
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely like a bit of sci-fi. I like a bit of fantasy. I'm actually kind of working with some people on a project that's very music based, but has a lot of visual aspect to it. That's very fantastical. I like I like more of like the surreal, I guess, but having this venture has been really fulfilling. Taking cues from old fables and sort of like reappropriating them for a weirder context has been a lot of fun. So I'm novice, but I'm getting my feet wet. I'm getting traction. In a year, I'm going to be incredibly fantastical.
Can you talk about fantastical how in this project yet, or can we, or should we not? Is the art's going to be inspired by old fables and stuff like that, or?
Yeah. It's just going to be the aim is for it to be kind of visually stimulating. I think Deafheaven is so focused on music itself. Of course, we do have a visual identity, but in terms of like video making and these kind of like more elaborate visual focuses, we've never really leaned into super hard. So for this other thing, I'm kind of able to exercise more of that part of my brain, which is cool. I can't say too much, I guess, but it'll show itself this year at some point. It's just been a lot of fun.
That's sick, because your poems and your songs, there's always sort of like, I guess what I would describe as, you said surreal, sometimes like hallucinatory stuff in there, or, you know, like there's one poem where there's a massive bunny at one point, I think, or something like that.
There's often, yeah, I think like imagist writing is really appealing to me, and anything to make something a bit stranger or have the listener or reader question what's happening is interesting to me. I try and expand on that a little bit. It's also so much of like, in terms of like Deafheaven specifically, autobiographical, and I think in a way I use those ideas to kind of obscure the absolute truth. And for me, it's just a way to be creative. I don't know. It's just something a little more than basic. I don't know.
So
do you go ahead, Coley?
Well, I was gonna add, speaking of creativity, I think we mentioned this on the Carrie episode, but like at the beginning of quarantine, you came over to my house and took a picture of me, and you talked about like these creative projects that you're working on during quarantine, where you're kind of like approaching creativity piecemeal, kind of trying to like look at each part of an album and like learn about that one particular thing. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think, every musician experienced the extreme fallout of the pandemic. We had our whole year of touring swiped, as many did, and we've always been close with photographers. In particular, when I decided to do this, I was talking with Sean Stout, who worked on Ordinary with us, and my friend Brian Kanagaki, who's a phenomenal photographer.
Sean lived in my house for a month, randomly.
Did he?
Yeah.
Nice. And I wanted to kind of try it out myself. So yeah, just stretching those muscles. And learning. I think it's been a year of learning. I think I was afraid of being bored. I get pretty discontent when I have nothing to do, and I get idle hands pretty easy. So this was a way to kind of fix those things. It's been fun.
I think that I think of you as kind of a Luddite, and I think that's primarily because of your daily routine. To me is like, it's borderline psychotic to me. Like you wake up super can you talk about your routine, like pre and post COVID? It fascinates me.
Someone told me I've never I never served, and I'm not very into the military per se, but I do like a lot of the lifestyle, I guess. Someone told me that one time. Like today. So I woke up at 4:45, and I kind of mill around for a little bit, and then I did a 5-mile run, and then made breakfast and did some reading. I have some like band stuff, and then I'll go to the gym in a couple hours, and then I'll make dinner and like watch an episode of something and fall asleep. The thing is that I don't. It's not. I just don't really sleep well.
That's what I was about to say. How much of this is about your insomnia, basically?
Almost all of it. It's
trying to exhaust yourself.
Yeah. Because I go to bed around midnight. So yeah, I average around 4 or 5 hours, and then that's off to the races. But it's mostly just nothing better to do, especially during COVID. Just hanging out in parks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that endless energy is I
It's
don't
awful. It's
understand
awful.
it.
It's a absolute curse.
I envy it over here, and you're telling me it's a curse. But grass is always greener. Yeah.
So G, the question we've all been wanting to ask. There's a special someone in your life, a special lady. Could you tell us more about Joan?
Yes, my God. Well, let me preface this with saying that I'm in New Zealand right now, and I've been away from Joan. I periodically get photos of her, and I'm missing her very much. This is a dog-friendly city, and so I'm seeing Joan in everything. I see her in birds, and there's quite a Joni-looking cicada that I had a nice interaction with just the other day. So she's always with me, but she is my 10-pound Shih Tzu, and she's been featured in some of our art. We made like a video that she's heavily featured in that then we played for a whole tour, which was amazing to see a lunatic on stage with like a big fluffy dog behind him. Yeah, it's all about the juxtaposition. But Joan, I love her. She's being very well taken care of right now, and I want to thank the two lovely people that are doing that.
George, speaking of tour, can you tell me what is Texas Justice?
I forgot that this happens. Well, I'll tell you the real story. Is Carrie and I were in. I guess this is like there's like a funny part of Texas. Texas Justice is just like a Texas sheriff who's like Texas Justice. Who's like this. Who's like a curmudgeon-y, like really like bigoted sheriff guy. But what it started with was Carrie and I in an older band when we were like 18. We're traveling in world's shittiest van across West Texas because I believe we had a show in Odessa, which can you already have a picture painted there. And we were doing an overnight drive, and we were pulled over. It was around 5 a.m, and these two cops, decided that there was weed in the car, or it smelled like weed, which we had no weed. We were too poor for weed. And actually he looked on the floorboard and he saw like dried mud or something, and was like, it looks like this is it. It was something extremely fabricated. And we all had to get out of the van. And I remember this, they made us line up on the side of the street. We had to be arm's length apart, and then we had to turn around and take 15 steps out into the desert.
What?
Yeah.
Like they're gonna execute you?
Yes, that's what it felt like. It was very like, oh God. And we all had to stand really far apart, walk out into the desert, pitch black. They took everything out of the van. They took all of our personal bags, which were like filled with the most disgusting socks you could imagine, which was like the only slightly redeeming part of it, is watching these people sift through loads of disgusting laundry. But they dumped all of our bags out on the street, essentially kicked it all around, and we were there till like 6:30.
Whoa.
Yeah, we watched the sun come up, and and we were like, terrified the whole time. Of course, they found nothing, and they left all our stuff and drove off, and we had to pick up all the pieces, and then I think it was like 10 miles to the next motel, and it was like the closest thing that we saw, and pulled over and fell asleep for a few hours. But Texas Justice kind of came out of that. It was just it's like the scary West Texas lone sheriff that has like a vendetta and is bored. And we've had a lot of really weird cop experiences over the years. That one takes a cake though.
Yeah, keeping us safe, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you about the gym, because we have a lot of, you know, people in chat here who have never seen a gym before, a lot of Magic players, you know, a lot of frail gamers here. And it's just kind of a silly question I wanted to ask about, because I know you and Carrie like hit the gym on tour and stuff, and you were psyched to have gym access now that you're in New Zealand and stuff. But is there anything that you've learned now that like gym culture is a part of your life? And would you ever take your camera in there and do like a Westlake Evergreen gym edition?
I would absolutely.
George's book.
It's a dream of mine. I would love to photograph bodybuilders.
Sick.
It's such. I'll say this. Okay, what happened was in my pre-gym days, like just as in like a funny way, myself and kind of to a lesser degree, but still present, our old bassist and friend Steven, would find these like really these deep bodybuilding accounts on Instagram. I mean, because these guys and these men and women are so intensely dedicated to something, and I think that's alluring. It's very extreme. And I think that's my attraction to it. I am not like that. I just like to. I spent a lot of my life feeling bad, and so it's nice to try and do things for myself that make me feel a little bit better. But in like I guess in an artistic sense, I really appreciate the extremism of it, and I don't think anyone would be super keen on me bringing a camera, but it would be. I think it'd be like legitimately enjoyable.
Yeah, just like as a follow-up, as someone who's in there, you know, would you say feeling bad a lot of the time of a lot of your life? How did you transition? You just start going, you're like, oh, I can't sleep, I just need to, because I can get like a week or two of my life where I'm like, oh yeah, I do this now. Like you and I went to the climbing gym for a while. That was like a big deal for me, you know, like I'm exercising now.
Yeah. I can be open about this, but as an alcoholic, one uses that, or I used it. I drank just, you know, like a bottle a day kind of thing, and it helps you sleep. It's its greatest gift, maybe. And when I stopped that, I had like I needed somewhere to put that energy and
put all the rage.
Yeah, and just restlessness, honestly. And thankfully I had Carrie too, and like Carrie's a bigger gym guy than I am. But having each other in the beginning was really helpful, and the same, it's continued on. It's kind of, if I don't do it for a long time, I get kind of bent out of shape. It just is good for my mental health, I guess. But it is funny. I'll down here, I joined, and I know what this sounds like, but I joined a CrossFit gym, right? I was like, I'm going to try this out. I keep hearing about it. I threw up 2 times the first day.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Are you like flipping tires and stuff?
No tire flipping, but I did climb a rope. You know, but it's just body weight stuff. It's really actually less like, it's less weird than I had originally imagined, but it's been fun. It's just something to do, honestly.
So G, in your band, there's 2 duos of kids that grew up together. There's Dan and Shiv, right? And then there's you and Carrie who grew up together in Modesto. What were you guys like when you first met?
God, just losers. Just really just really losery, with no care about anything. Very, very tunnel visioned on like music and really just music. I wouldn't even say, art and all that was sort of just secondary, but we were kind of outcasts a little bit. I guess in our high school, there was not a whole lot of us. And it was kind of the thing, like everyone met up at the park after school to like smoke cigarettes and like, I remember Carrie smoked cigarettes and it like blew my mind. I was just like, this guy's hard. Cause I had just turned 14. And yeah, it was fun. We had like a little clique, and then we'd like, his dad would like take us to shows in Stockton and in Modesto, and we got really and we got really into like the death rock punk scene there. Everything was sort of like all the AFI stuff happening in the Bay Area sort of trickled down, and the Central Valley had its own scene of those types of bands. So it was a lot of makeup and a lot of just dark stuff, just cool dark stuff. And Shiv and Dan were the exact same way. They kind of found each other at that similar time. Both just into like bad kid things, bad kid things bring people closer together than most things do.
True.
That was like our sport.
It's like Magic the Gathering,
Exactly.
Bad boys only. I used you as my like secret Nardwuar source for our Carrie McCoy interview that we did previously, yes. And you gave me the most incredible inside information on Carrie, and you were talking about what was it called? The gas station that he worked at. Did you work there with Carrie?
No, I didn't. But it played a big part in our lives. Because we were there like every day, and I was always stealing from there. And like, well, here's the thing is that we always wanted to have parties, but we were well below drinking age, and we had gotten an apartment together, and we were like, now it's time for us to throw parties, but both of us were so incredibly broke. I'll tell you where I worked. I worked at a place. I worked at a call center that hired people just out of jail, and I guess people like me. And we would cold call mostly elderly people on behalf of police federations to have them give money for dead cops that like died in the year.
Oh my god!
I mean, the grimmest shit you can think of in Modesto, just being like, did you hear Officer Alvarez was shot to death last year? Like, oh, I did hear that. Like, yeah, it's pretty sad. Anyway, for a one-time $10 donation. And there was no prospects. I mean, this is after the Central Valley in general has a pretty rough go, but this is after the 2008 crash and everything was at its absolute worst. I remember all of our friends were struggling for employment. So he did the gas station and I did this, and neither one paid us well. So yeah, I'd steal booze and we'd have our little parties and life was cool.
But did you save his gas station pin? Because I would pay good money for that gas station pin.
I have it.
You have Carrie McCoy's gas station.
Mm-hmm. It says Carrie McCoy 76 on it. Yeah. My mom actually had it, and 2 years ago showed me an old box full of my things that it was somehow in. I have no idea. I must have just collected it thinking it was funny a decade ago. And she held on to it. Yeah, so I have it now. It's I have like a Carrie shrine. I have all these little, because Carrie doesn't want to keep stuff around, especially if it has like his face on it or something. So I just do him the service. I have the key to McCoy.
Well, you guys have been together for so fucking long. And you and Carrie together versus you and Carrie individually, it's completely different experiences. I mean, I find that you guys are almost like, you're almost bad influences on each other. There's a lot of like goading and egging on that goes on in my experience around you guys. And and I feel like, but bad experiences is I don't mean that literally, or bad influences, I don't mean that literally. I mean, you guys, there's just this like 1 and 1 is 3 element.
Yeah, like this constant like snowballing of just like one-upping each other's wild sense of humor and shit.
Yeah. It's funny. There's a subconscious thing where like we know how to attack one another without it being hurtful. It just being like, wow, it just being like shocking.
Right.
Like Jesus. Of course, we've also been terrible influences on each other in real ways too. So it's great. We have I think it's very rare, and I think it's very special that we've been able to traverse all these kind of different roads together as our friendship's gone. Yeah.
It's super rare, and I admire it a lot. And I wanted to ask how having this almost, lifelong partner in music affected you creatively, and when you look to work on your own, like with your highly lauded Mr. Deranged project, or some of your spoken word performances that you did before the pandemic, how do things change for you when Carrie, and for that matter, the rest of the band's musical input isn't around? It's great. I think initially it allowed us both to have the confidence to pursue it in general. I think going it alone is so difficult. I think about solo artists, singer-songwriters, these types of people, that it's very impressive. We always kind of had a crutch, and I think that we did that until, we could kind of get on our own feet. And now, he works on projects and I work on projects, and we share them with each other. And we have, it doesn't, like, there's no sense of competition or some kind of creative ownership for one over the other. It's very just equal. And I think that having those years working together definitely help out with that. We're just more comfortable at this age than we couldn't have done it a decade ago. Definitely.
I found, like, generally in my experience, no matter the person you are today, there's always this kind of like fetishizing of the details of an artist's life from like the period where they first emerged in public consciousness. So like for some listeners, you guys will always be like broke 20-somethings living in the Mission and like getting fucked up or whatever. Is there part of you that wishes you could just leave biographical details out of the conversation around your band or music in general, or do you think it's important to the context of the albums or something?
Both. I think that to understand what we do and who we are requires context. At the same time, especially from a publicity standpoint or a media standpoint, you have motifs that journalists latch onto, and so you're kind of, for better or worse, attached to those things. And yeah, I think in general, as we continue forward, as we become the people that we are, and as we drift further from the past, having new narratives is very important. I don't always want to be in Roads to Judah world or Sunbather world. I think that the journey is interesting, and I understand journalists don't have necessarily the time to thoroughly investigate every artist that they're doing and yada yada. But it's
or
a
they
two-sided
just don't
coin.
feel like it.
Or they just yeah. Or there's there's a certain amount of laziness involved sometimes, I'm sure. But yeah, it's both. Of course, there's things that I wish people would just let go of, but I like to believe that the good outweighs the bad.
George, if there were a Deafheaven biopic, who would play each member of the band?
I got all five.
Hey, you got to get at least 3 out of 5.
Jeez, I'm gonna be so bad at this. Okay,
just do the easiest ones. I feel like I can come up with some.
I want McCoy to be like 96 Hugh Grant. Can we?
Yes.
I think I just want that for him. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason behind it.
I fully support that. I also want to see Hugh Grant going through the phases of Carrie, like long hair phase Carrie.
Yeah. I want to see Hugh Grant emerge from a tent that we have tacked up in a living room so that him and I have privacy. Yeah, if I could just see Hugh like that.
Danny Nelson Smith is insisting in chat that you do all 5. So just saying.
Listen, my movie. It's not going to go well. We'll be. Okay. It'll take the next 10.
Well, that answer was really strong, so we can leave it at that. Cole, you want to do your?
All right. Yeah. So we're gonna do the segment. I think you watched the first episode, maybe.
I've seen a few. Yeah.
Sick. So we do a segment of song title or Magic the Gathering card.
I knew this was coming.
So for this one, we I don't know. I think it felt right to do this one, which is old school death metal album title or Magic the Gathering card.
Okay. We're gonna really find my pose here. Let's do it.
And I feel like I say this every single time, but this one's maybe the hardest one we've done.
We're trying to trick you. It's kind of mean to do to our guests because it's the point is that this is really difficult and the audience should know that these are hard.
It's all right. I'm not ashamed.
Yeah, okay. And there's definitely specific ones that are designed to trick you. So here we go. First one, Mind Funeral.
Magic.
It's Magic, not to be confused with Autopsy's 91 album Mental Funeral.
Very close, but no cigar.
Chronicles of the Shadowed Ones.
Oh God, Chronicles of the Shadowed Ones. I'll go Magic again.
That is that's music. It's a Morpheus Descends album.
Okay, all right. I'll have to check that one out.
Or strong title.
A great title. I should have known that no card could have such a long thing, but good.
Blood Chief's Thirst.
Magic again.
That's Magic. How's he doing, Luke?
He's got 2 out of 3 so far.
All right. Consuming Impulse.
Death metal.
It's a 1989 Pestilence record. Okay.
Nice.
Dismember.
Yeah, death metal.
So that one's the trick question. That's actually both. It's a magic
both,
card
okay.
and a OSDM band. Prophecies of a Dying World.
Death metal.
Yep. Lingering Souls.
Magic.
Hour of the Gate.
Death metal.
Yep, Bloodstone album. Morbid Visions.
Death metal.
Yep, Sepultura record. Dark Ritual.
Magic.
Magic, fucking A. All right, Rest in Peace.
Oh man. Death metal.
That's actually a trick question also. That's both. It's a Blaspherian album from 91 and also a card.
Nice, G. You got 10 out of 11.
Fucking
Shit,
impressive.
Man.
Very.
I've been telling them. Been saying it.
All right, G. So our bands toured together for like a month. And before we would walk on stage every show, like nobody ever knew where the rest of the band was. One person would be like smoking outside. One person would be like selling merch or whatever. And then we get on stage and it would be like this shock to the system. But watching you guys before you went on stage, there's kind of these like pre-show rituals. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah. But I will say there's been infinite times where someone, usually Carrie, is like, where the fuck is yada yada? You know, like someone's always peeing for the third time, you know? Or like I'm like having to like wet and re-wet my hair a million times and everyone is annoyed. And no, it's always, it's hands in and it's whatever happens, I love you. That's what we always say. It's been that way for a long time. It's just a nice way of getting psyched because it doesn't always go well. In fact, it so often goes terribly that you need to know, like, while you're on stage, if someone becomes unplugged or someone smashes a monitor and can't hear themselves anymore, that it's all good. You know, what's done is done, and we'll move past this. And it's just kind of like a reassurance more than anything. Like, please don't hate me if all of this goes to hell.
Is there a show in particular that stands out as like the biggest train wreck?
Oh my God, man. Yeah, quite a few. Mostly like early days. The one that I tend to reference a lot is Sound and Fury. This is a mostly predominantly hardcore festival that happens in Southern California. Now it happens in LA, but previously it was happening in Santa Barbara. And it was a mixture of us feeling out of place and drinking very heavily and just being like non-caring, and then also playing in front of an audience that was, you know, wanting to have fun and mosh and do whatever else, and it was like hospital lighting, you know, in the venue. Yeah. It was like really bright, and it's such a mess. And there's a video of it. Don't watch it, please.
I've watched it. It's so fucking good.
Wait, this is the video. This is the video where it looks like it's in a high school gym or something.
Yeah, he's
like
wearing
that,
like
right?
a blue button down.
This is my favorite Deafheaven.
It's so
Cole
good.
It's our favorite live video of you guys.
It's insane. I'll say this. I hardly remember it, the details, but we drank a fifth of Jack Daniels in the van. It was like it's like a straight edge thing, or there's you know, it's like an all ages thing, and you know, at the time we were just like, fuck this, and you know, like, let's get hammered, and we did by the very early afternoon, and I just spit and sweat a lot, and you know, the whole thing was quite rude, but it is hilarious. I mean, we're just so stupid, you know. I love it.
What Cole and I have talked about this live show, this particular. I love that this is one of your least favorite ones. Like, this is just so classic. But that one in particular, you're wearing like khakis and a blue collar t-shirt, right? You're wearing like a button-down t-shirt. You have like a normal ass haircut.
He looks like the guy from Falling Down, like a regular ass guy who went insane and just wandered into like a high school gymnasium.
Amazing about it. Exactly. You look like a total, like a guy working at a call center who fucking lost his shit. You know, it's so sick.
I think that's quite kind. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was funny. We were holding, especially at the time, we were holding on to this button down thing so hard. You know, I was like, I want to I can't wear a band tee. I want to be like subversive. Yeah. But it was usually like I just wore all black, and instead of just wearing a black t-shirt in lieu of it, I was like, well, light blue will work, I guess. And I'm a sweaty person, you know. It's just the way I was made. And I'm just sweating so bad. That's really my memory of it, is like just looking really rough.
It's
great.
One of my favorite live videos.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're wrong. But I love when there's that like that total difference of experience from the artist performing it versus how it's received now or at the time.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think people were like, fuck this band, which is totally fair. And we were like, man, we loved it. It is funny to watch. You know, we kind of cut our teeth on the road. We didn't grow in a local scene, really. We started touring pretty soon after we had initially started playing shows. So there was a lot of growing pains in those early years. I'm sure anyone that saw us in the first at least 2.5 years was like this band needs a lot of work. We were pretty rough around the edges.
It's funny. My impression of that video again is like they cut to the audience a bunch, and I feel like they either don't know what to make of it, or like really. To me, my impression was that they were moved. Like they look like kind of shocked, which I feel like is the best reaction possible in some ways.
Yeah, if they don't like you, I guess it's good to have them be surprised in a way. But having been there, I don't recall it being very positive.
Okay, fair. Cole, I want to skip my question. Ask away your thing.
Sure. All right. So the Grammys are like next weekend or something, or I thought they were today, but I think they're like what, Sunday or something.
I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah. So your band was nominated for a Grammy. What was that whole experience like? Like going to it, or you know, just the whole experience, and what do the Grammys represent to you today?
It was cool. More so than anything, it's a novelty. I think we understand that. I think that for our genre in particular, it is not necessarily an indicator of success or anything like that. I think it's more often than not a crapshoot. I think that it's kind of an afterthought comparatively to the other awards. That said. And so because of that, you know, we're never thinking like, you know, like this one's gonna get a Grammy. But that said, it's amazing. It actually feels quite extraordinary. I think more so because you are recognized on a level of normal people. Like my mom, who I took. Was just, you know, was so excited. It's a validating experience for the people at large, who support what you do, but don't necessarily understand like the intricacies of it. And I was flying somewhere. I maybe it's to New York. I had a layover in North Carolina, and it was 9 a.m. around then, or maybe 9:30, like they just announced, and we started getting tagged and stuff. And I was in like a cafe in the airport, and I just called Carrie. And you know, it was 6 a.m. on East Coast time or on West Coast time. I had called him like twice, and I think it freaked him out because why would I be, you know, calling over and over at that hour. And I was just like, dude, you know, we're nominated for a Grammy. This is insane. And then people around me in the airport were like, oh, you know, like, which was fun. And then it was the same thing with Kathy, our manager. I called her and was like, you know, the Grammy, blah, blah. And then she went with us. It was really fun. But like I said, it was like the biggest reward for me was probably taking my mom. TLC played the after party. They were amazing. They had like a live band. Like they sounded extremely good. The audience was small, and my mom was just really head over heels about it. It was so for that it was really cool.
Awesome.
And you know, congratulations to everyone that's being nominated this year. Power Trip in particular, who I'd like to see take the award. But you know, it's cool. It's just cool, and it's very, like I said, it's very novel. I don't think anyone in our business has a lot of weight in awards, but that being said, I do sometimes fantasize about there being like a more independent version where a bunch of, you know, us and a bunch of our friends and a bunch of people that, you know, we perform with can get together and have some kind of validation in that respect, because, you know, it also leads to touring opportunities or publishing opportunities. And, you know, for large groups of people, it does mean something. It carries some weight. And I think for that, it's okay to, you know, maybe have around. But yeah, it'd be cool if it was broader, I guess.
Well, apropos, you know, people in your scene and people around you, you've talked a little bit about, you know, growing up, going to kind of local punk shows and sort of a scene around you a little bit. And I feel like in the, you know, Golden Voice or Live Nation era of music, it's harder to stay connected to a scene the bigger you get sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I know you put a lot of thought into your touring lineups when you're picking openers. And I was wondering if this is kind of your way of fostering a scene, how important the idea of community and scene is to you, and what you do to try and stay connected to artists around you that you admire and want to be around.
Absolutely. I think it's hugely important. I think a headliner's control of who they take out is one of the strongest powers they have. The opportunity for a small band to play in front of a larger audience and to have, in effect, the backing of that larger band is hugely important. I think that it is a way that we can stay connected to things we care about. I think it also is invigorating for us to be challenged by younger artists who are doing really interesting things, especially most of whom are doing so without a budget of any kind, and who exist primarily in like a DIY world. I mean, I think one of the first bands that comes to mind is Wreck and Reference, who's this incredible band, and who has always kind of played smaller DIY ran spaces, and to give them an opportunity to play in front of larger audiences in the same way that Russian Circles gave us when we were first starting out is cool. And I think for me, it's the easiest way to stay connected too, because it is true as you get older, as new things enter your life, as cynicism enters your life more and more, which being a long-term musician, that will happen. Being able to appreciate a younger generation or just artists that are doing something challenging is it kind of gets back to basics. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you take away all the rest of the bullshit, and it's just like, oh, this is cool, and I want to be able to pay this band, I want to be able to give this band more than they would get from a local spot on a Friday or Saturday night, and I want to see them thrive. I appreciate that. I do. I try and take time to create bills that are also interesting for our audience, maybe show them something new, or even more like selfishly recontextualize their vision of us. Like taking out like Youth Code or like Uniform or bands like this, like, oh, I didn't know Deafheaven was into this. This is interesting. This colors this band in a different way for me. And in that respect, we're both getting something out of it as far as like fanfare goes. It does travel both ways.
Yeah, I felt that way for sure when you guys brought out Iowana, Geeka, and Dive. I mean, I thought that lineup was such a fascinating combination of bands, and I wanted to be there for the whole bill as opposed to just like, oh,
totally.
These are kind of different versions of the same band in some sense.
Totally, and I think that's a big part of it too, is getting people there early and making the ticket worth it. Yeah. Because they're not always cheap, for our fan base, $25 plus you're thinking parking, you're thinking drinks and all this, like it's a way to show, it's another way to show your appreciation for the audience, is to give them something that's worth their dollar. And on the other side of that, like with Iowa in particular, it's an opportunity for me to become closer to the music, because, being on tour with someone, you see these songs every night. You're like, oh, I really love this record.
Yeah, totally.
And so again, it goes both ways.
And like listening to the record of a band you just toured with is like, it just brings you right back. I feel like I have a bunch of records like that. I guess you kind of just touched on it, but there's something I wanted to talk about a little bit. There's this like really unique sense of this like communal cathartic experience at your shows. The performance is really raw and visceral, and audience engagement seems really intimate. It's like whether you're like looking like straight in the eyes of the person in the front row, or like the first time I saw you play in like 2014, someone in the front row was licking your shoes. But there's this really big like give and take between the audience and the band. So from your perspective, as the music world shifts to one where Liz Pelly described it as a tech-enabled monoculture that erodes local connections, all while downplaying the significance of permanent physical spaces to community building. So for you, if these like local community connections are eroded and venues continue to close down, etc., what's lost for you as an artist?
Shout out Liz Pelly.
Yeah, for real. My interest, and I don't think I'm alone. I think that for me, going back to like Carrie and I going to shows when we were 14. I never left a show not covered in other people's sweat. I didn't go, like the bands didn't have CDs out or anything. Like I hardly, for majority of them, even knew the songs. I went because there was other people like me, a very small minority, in the general world. And I felt at home. And I felt connected, and it's therapeutic, and it gives you a lot of things that at the time you don't recognize those things. You're just having fun, but it's very real. And in the way that playlisting and this whole idea of online fan interaction doesn't offer, and in a way that large venues don't offer. And so as we do ascend to larger venues, it's important in our performance to always maintain some sense of intimacy. You know, if the venue needs to have a barrier, you know, if it's a non-negotiable thing, you know, I'm going to be on the barrier. I'm going to be in the audience, because that part of it can't be lost. No matter how much lights and smoke you have, you need to be able to reach out and touch. There's a transference of power there. And I go in phases where I am assuming the power, and then I'm also letting all of it go, and they are in control. And either, you know, usually it's very physically. I'm laying on the audience and they're carrying me, or they're taking the microphone from me and we're sharing this. And it's so absolutely foundational that to come from a world, and a lot of artists do, and I'm not condemning that at all, but to come from a world that doesn't have that, or isn't stemmed in that, or rooted in that, is very foreign, you know, to me. I can see why perhaps those artists don't like playing shows, or a lot of artists, you know, like, I don't prefer to tour. And it's like, well, I guess if I was on a big empty stage alone all the time, I wouldn't either, you know, where my most intimate interaction with someone who's appreciating the ideas that I'm giving is like on Instagram Live. You know, if that is what everything amounts to, then I'm going to lose interest. And keeping myself interested and keeping the people who are coming to see us interested, I think is paramount.
Do you think that generally, even outside of music, there's sort of a loss of just communal just a community in general, I guess? I mean, Cole and I being a part of AA, and I know you're familiar with the program and how it works. Anytime I tell people in depth about how the program works who aren't alcoholics, they're like, oh man, I wish there was something like that for just regular people, because there's this real sense of community, you know?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a thing? I feel like it's a long-winded yes or no question, but like...
Well, the answer is both. I think that it does exist. I think that one has to seek it. I think that music is very easy. I think people that have an attraction to music and the lifestyle of music, to find that community is I think that just happens naturally. And if that's not what you come from, you know, you often find it in politics, or you find it in community action. You find it in, you know, I think about like the Echo Park garden projects, you know, and that's a huge community, and people that are giving and taking and you know, reliant on one another, and that reliance gives it strength. I think that you see examples of that a lot of places, but again, you have to seek it, and maybe, you know, and some people even have that in the workplace, to lesser degrees. But yeah, you know, when you talk about AA in particular, that's its greatest gift, is in the same way that when you go to a show not knowing what to expect, but feel invigorated by knowing that someone else there is just like you. The same thing is, you know, in these meetings, is in the program. You go, you don't know, especially if you're new, what to expect, but you leave with a sense of like place. And I think that having a sense of place is incredibly important, and I think a lot of people find that to be challenging, and I feel for them, and because I think it's something everyone needs, in one way or another.
It seems increasingly harder to seek out that place. You know, I mean, that's like the main thing I hear in those meetings is I just like didn't have a community, I didn't have a group of people, and you know, this talking about even in places like music where there is this sort of like readily available community, I just, maybe it's my cynicism, but sometimes I just see things spreading apart and getting more and more separate. And
I think that's natural. I think that I think especially in the year that we've had, everything moving on, moving into these online based interactions and stuff. I have felt incredible isolation. You know, I'll say that we have been fortunate that we spent the last year working on music and stuff, and so I had you know, I had my guys and I had my small group that I could, you know, that lessened the blow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's natural to feel that way. I think it's also something that comes with age. I think, you know, people kind of grow apart as they mature or as they have their own families or anything like that. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. And it can feel like a very lonely place, but it's community, in-person community especially, is one of the things I try and not be pessimistic about. I am rife with pessimism. You know, it's very easy for me to take the negative road about anything, but that's one thing I try and remember its value for sure.
Speaking of community, so all three of us have the same manager, Kathy, at Sargent House, although Lucas and I were latecomers to the Sargent House family. So, like, what is Sargent House, and what was it like before we showed up?
Sargent House is a record label and management. Kathy Pello, and who kind of runs the show, her and Mark, and they're great. Early days, I remember just being flabbergasted by the whole thing. The old headquarters was in Echo Park. I remember Carrie and I going to this house and just being like, you know, like, oh my God, we made it. You know, like this house is big. And she worked at the time with artists that we enjoyed, and Russian Circles gave us the leg up there. And I remember we played at the Troubadour, and I met Kathy. We were actually, another label was coming to see us, or they were going to be at the show, and they were kind of like we had I think exchanged a couple emails or something, and I was very excited about this. And when we played and I spoke very briefly to one of the guys, they were super uninterested and very standoffish. And I just remember being like, okay, like, well, whatever. And then Kathy just being like, fuck those people. And I needed someone to be that way. I needed that type of strength. Because that's kind of her MO, is being like, this is good. You're wrong. I'm right. And I'm going to do everything I can to show you how wrong you are by making what I think is good a success. And that's, you know, I love that.
That's a good description, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it comes from, you know, it's probably part of my personality, but I love success from resentment. You know, it's my, Carrie and I used to joke about sore winning. You know, I'm just kidding, but no, she's great. And she has a good ear, and she understands, heart, I think, more than anything. I think that when she meets an artist and she wants to work with that artist, she's really looking at that artist's heart. I think that she only works with people who who believe that like, if I don't do this, you know, my life will be unfulfilling, you know, like, and she treats it the same way. She is an absolute, I mean this positively, but like a workaholic, you know. I get texts from Kathy at all hours. Her brain is always on to something. And for someone like me who's awake a lot of the time, I thrive on that. I'm like, yes, like let's scheme. Mm-hmm. Let's make plans. Let's do something bold. Let's subvert the norm, you know, as much as we can. And I think that we've really found a partner in that. And it's cool. Yeah. And we try to extend that to other artists in the same way that Russian Circles really helped us and put us in front of her. We try and do the same when we can.
Hell yeah. I heard you talk about Luna, the song Luna off New Bermuda one time, and you said that song in particular is not very hidden. Everything's pretty much there. That's about as direct as our lyrics go. Can you talk about what you mean by hidden? And do you intentionally go for or forego a certain directness in favor of more open interpretation? And I guess, do you ever come away with lyrics that are a mystery even to you?
I think that for me, I'm always I think I get a little bit tangled sometimes in my own thought. And every record is sort of a patchwork of all these ideas, and for them to be plainly stated, just it wouldn't work. In my head, it doesn't work. I need metaphor. I need the audience to have a certain amount of freedom in their listening experience. I want people to interpret things in the way that they see fit. You know, not just like here's another suicide song. You know, right. I mean, I've killed myself on every album. There's always a song. We were talking Gifts for the Earth earlier. I mean, that song is exactly that. And I have a lot of those songs. And because I've dealt with a lot of those feelings of wondering about the end or seeking it through different modes of self-destruction. So I think maybe perhaps in an attempt to keep myself interested with these with this constant ideas and to relieve the audience and to allow them to openly interpret what I'm saying, I'll go into more. I'll try and word things a bit more creatively or try and express ideas in more interesting ways.
Two things. Your card is currently in play, Cole. If you want to highlight Gristlebrand here, we got the George card in play.
Hold on, I gotta get the I don't know where it is, but
the huge demon lord that we posted your face onto is in play right now.
Oh yeah, deal. I didn't talk about it at the beginning. This is the demon lord card. This was like the original thing that we built this deck around.
Is the huge demon.
And Lucas photoshopped your face on
that guy. Yeah. He's swole.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Do you ever feel like keeping things open for interpretation is healthy for you as the performer, so that like meaning can evolve for you over the years, or does the ultimate sort of point of the song remain the same?
I think that it stays the same, but after it's done, it's not really for me anymore. You know,
sure.
It's for whoever is listening, and it's the same thing in the live context where, like the end of Dreamhouse, which is like our big thing, our big track. at this point, I'm like essentially 100% in the audience every time it happens. I want to give them that. It's for them to take and carry with them. And so in that respect, I hope that the meaning always stays the same. Because the meaning is important. It's just, at that point, it's less about me, I guess.
Totally. You released 2 books of poetry and photography, I think, 2 years ago now, 2019. Yeah. And you mentioned the Sweet Fly Paper of Life, the Langston Hughes, Roy DeCarava book, and the collaboration which is a collaboration between writer and photographer, of course. But in your books, you're wearing both hats. Can you talk about these sort of 3 different worlds you have, as I see it at least, where there's the photography informing writing? Is writing informing the music? Like, can you talk about this sort of soup of things going on here?
Yeah. Again, it's all about just kind of muscle stretching, and a lot of this stuff is me just trying something new.
It all comes back to the gym, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I just need something to clear my head with. I wanted to write. Some of that actually were like the original versions of lyrics that were later used. Some of that was just kind of like asides, and then Westlake in particular, I wrote about my grandfather. That's sort of like pretty heavily biographical, but also again has these kind of more like surreal elements to it. And I've talked about my grandparents a bit over the years through our albums and stuff, and I wanted something that was a bit more dedicated for him and his experience in Westlake, and my experience contending with him in Westlake. And so it just felt kind of necessary. Also, mostly I just wanted to try it out. Writing is such a weird thing for me because I don't view it as my strength necessarily, even though it's one of the things I like to do most. And so this is an opportunity to kind of be brave, I think, more than anything. And, I remember telling, I think it was Kathy, that like, I have to do it now or else I'll never do it. Right. Even if it's not of the quality that I would want, or, XYZ, like if I don't just cross that, I don't know when I will. So those are kind of motivations.
And they're beautiful books, and they sold out fairly quickly, if I'm not mistaken.
They did all right. Yeah. People were supportive, and I really appreciated it.
Cole, I just wanted to ask real quick. Sorry, Cole. Would you talk a little bit about your grandfather living with you for a while?
Yeah. He lived with me for 2 years, and it was a particularly difficult time, I guess. He requires a lot of attention and a lot of care. He was living in Mississippi. My grandmother died, and he was moved into like a VA facility, which he, for one reason or another, just couldn't handle. I think that he was in a lot of isolation, and so on a whim.
Sorry, George, keep going. My laptop is about to die, so I have to step away.
He came to California, moved in with me. I thankfully had a room that he could move into, and we set him up with doctors who would come by multiple times a week, and it was a lot. I had, people that were close to me were helping out a lot, and which I'm very thankful for. And because I was touring, and I wasn't necessarily taking care of myself either. In fact, my maybe worst year of vice kind of happened it was the year right before I stop doing stuff. Was happening. So it was really interesting. It was like on I was taking care of this guy and interfacing with these doctors and stuff like this, and trying to hold that all together, while I was also drinking and using the most I had like ever done, and that balance was really insane. In fact, as a funny anecdote. My last drink had been on December 3rd, and I didn't want to talk about it or anything like that. I was very much going it alone for the first month. And for Christmas, my grandpa bought me like a huge bottle of Crown Royal. And he was like, I know how much you love to drink the stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And it sat in my kitchen for years. I think I gave it to people like eventually when they would come visit would like piece it off or whatever. But yeah, pretty hilarious. It was good though. He does not live with me anymore. We got him into kind of a system. It's still a bit difficult. I deal with it actually pretty frequently, just having to keep up on it and stuff. But yeah, it was a good lesson in selflessness, I guess. Kind of put things in perspective a bit.
Yeah, there's this quality to Westlake, your book, where your grandpa winds up in LA in Westlake, which you call a grim world grown far beyond him. And like the photographs in that context present the city from this like outsider perspective, or like the perspective of an observer. Kind of similarly to me to the character in Sunbather, or you in Sunbather or whatever, driving through the maze of wealthy homes or fantasizing about Manhattan. You know, both are looking at these cities from a perspective of this like observing outsider, but where Sunbathers focus more on like the opulence or the class divide in these cities, and maybe there's like a sense of brutality in the narrator. Westlake or like more recent songs like Worthless Animal paint this class divide differently, focus more on like this just stark brutality of American city life. So like I guess the question is like, how has your perspective as an artist and writer shifted between these two periods?
That's a great question. It's definitely taken on a selfless quality. I think Sunbather is so marked by someone who hasn't had much and is seeking more, and something like Worthless Animal is kind of being in a position where you can see more clearly both sides. I think that when you're out of a state of personal desperation, you have a much more objective view of things. And I saw what was happening in downtown LA, and that song in particular references like an actual thing where a guy got out of his car and attacked a homeless person that was just a bit out of his mind, or somewhere else, and didn't understand that the green light was green, and just kind of being in that situation and really almost dumbfounded by the horror of it. And then in Westlake, yeah, when he got to LA, he couldn't really believe it. He was very shocked by MacArthur Park, and he was very shocked by Skid Row, and he was scared to walk around, and he bought this cane that would pull out of like a sheath and and it was like a blade. And he's like, yeah, actually very sick. But, for context, he was 90 years old at the time. And just terrified. And I thought, like, God, this guy, I feel for this guy. The world has gone on in ways that he, I guess, deemed unfathomable. and more to that, I think that in my sobriety and stuff, that's something that I've really wanted and have ventured into and paid it more of attention to is systems and why and the idea and history and the idea that these things aren't happenstance. And it's made me a bit more, clear-headed. I think that you can see. I think people can be very overwhelmed by wealth disparity, and not, and just have this big question mark over them. And I think that's where he was living, and I think he still lives that way. And I didn't want to see myself be the same.
A great answer. So I guess this is one of our last questions. But recently, a big part of your social media presence has just been excerpts from books you're reading. So I guess, what have you been reading recently? And is there anything you want to recommend to me and Lucas or to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's gotten more, I'll always read like Dulce Maria Loinez or Zimborska or like Lydia Davis or something like that, poets and narrative writers. But lately it's been a lot of history focus. It's a bit of political focus. Gwendolyn Mink wrote a book that I finished recently called Old Labor and New Immigrants in American Development, American Political Development, I'm sorry, that I really enjoyed. And it's just about a history of labor. The Invention of the White Race by Theodore Allen, which is a 2-volume thing. Again, history of American development, history of labor development, and then a lot of Reconstruction stuff. I'm really interested in having traced some of my own family's history. I'm really interested in the South from 1868 to 1894. Which is, one of the most grim thing you can imagine. All horrors of the earth, converge during this time and place, more specifically northwestern Louisiana, where my family is from. So yeah, I would recommend all of those. It's all a bit kind of tediously academic. I have to go through with like in the margins, I have to highlight a paragraph and sort of summarize it in the margin, just so when I can go back, I can be like, oh, this is for my own memory. This is what's being discussed here, kind of thing.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm not. I didn't go to college. I feel often overwhelmed or threatened by my own ignorance. And I feel like I can't partake in conversation, or I can't partake in debate in a meaningful way, in a way that I would really like to. And so all of these things are kind of an effort to make myself more comfortable in the world, and not feel again overwhelmed by things like wealth disparity, or not be overwhelmed by the way in which systems operate. I think history in particular is so incredibly important, and I've really enjoyed it. And also, having this year to do that has been very fulfilling. It's been, you get angry, and you get things feel unjust, but it's ultimately rewarding.
Well, George, it's that time again. It's that time for
Oh, it's
Old school death metal band or album title or Magic the Gathering card.
There's a round two?
There's a round two.
There's just there's so much to there's
a lot to cover, George, and we like to split it up in two parts now.
All right,
lay it on me.
Okay, here we go. Number 1, Effigy of the Forgotten.
Death metal.
Yep, Suffocation album. Altars of Madness.
Death metal again.
Yep, it's a Morbid Angel record, not to be confused with Altar of Dementia, right? The Magic card.
Correct.
Destructive Revelry.
Magic.
It's Magic. Fuck, man. Carrion Feeder.
Say that?
Carrion Feeder.
Oh, God. I'm going to go with Magic again.
Fuck, it's Magic. Calls from the Beyond.
Death metal.
Yeah. It's a Mega Slaughter album from 91. Cavern of Souls.
Magic?
It's Magic.
Okay.
Whirler of Fate.
Man, you're going to whirl fate now. I love it. I'm going to go with Magic again.
That's a record, which I didn't write down who it is. Oh, 97 record, I don't know who by, but anyway. Caducity.
Right.
Caducity? Doom Foretold.
Death metal.
It's Magic.
I'm losing it.
Eroded Thoughts.
Magic.
Death metal.
Go.
1993 Morgue album. And then the last one, Onward to Golgotha.
Ah, beautiful. Death metal.
Yep. It's a 92 Incantation record.
Yes, sir.
Gee, you got 17 out of 21.
That's a C?
I don't know.
B?
No, that's a low B.
That's like an A plus on this show.
Yeah, you and Carrie honestly were super impressive in these games. I think Carrie got like one wrong or something, but he had a shorter. We did Metallica.
No, his was Slipknot.
Right? Slipknot. Right. Yeah, and he nailed them all. I think he got one wrong or something, but you guys have got them.
So real quick before we end, I just want to report back on the games. We've been fucking cleaning up.
Yeah, we've been winning a lot with this deck.
I don't get it.
See it?
It's terrible.
It's so bad, but we're just I don't get it.
It's also
we're scraping everybody.
It's also an insanely expensive deck. Like,
is it?
Yeah, these cards are so expensive and it's so bad.
Yeah, you know how I do.
Yeah, you can't pay to play.
George, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up and play this song out before we did have a question about the new Kings of Leon album and NFTs in chat earlier on, but I don't know how deep we want to go.
NFTs.
Yeah, I want to hear your opinion on NFTs. For sure.
I'll say this because I could probably go for a while, but I could go for a while with honestly I know as much as the next person. But my problem in so far in what I've read, my issue isn't, I don't have issue against new currency. I don't have issue against futurism at all. I don't have issue, and I also don't. I don't place any of this really I would never blame an artist. I think especially in the visual arts world, the way that like the gallery system is so bottlenecked and so difficult to contend with, having avenues with which to sell your work when most of your medium is free, in terms of like social media or however it is that you can online advertise your work. I think it's very limited. So for those visual artists, I would never hate the hustle. But for music, my trouble is not. It's more the rhetoric that is coming with this. It's the like you can create the marketplace, or somehow alluding to a more egalitarian system of like, or like where everyone can have a piece and it's more direct and etc. And what I've seen is more of just what kind of always happens, which is people with large followings, people with money already participate and things pool at the top. And I think it's my dad, whom I love and respect and wants more from me because he understands the plight of musicians, has brought this up to me a bunch of times and being like, you should sell, and this is an avenue with which you can reap a profit that you deserve, while I get that way of thinking, to me it's like the worst parts of like Art Basel put into a Beanie Baby model, in this.
That sounds great.
And then thrown into this like speculative investment economy, and the idea that it's like what he told me was like, this is an answer to like your Spotify issue, which is like, in my opinion, just another version of it also is, speculative investment economy. Like it's why Daniel Ek can say like, we've never turned a profit, but like be a billionaire and use that as like some kind of defense and why things aren't redistributed for artists fairly. So I just see it as kind of like another game. I'm bothered by the incessant need for lottery. Like I don't want lottery. I want a safety net. I don't want to be rich. I want to be compensated fairly. I don't, like when you see like such and such sold their thing for like $2 million, like that's great. That's the same to me as like girl sells lemonade for like mom's cancer. Like it's a one story, like it's trying to make you like feel good, but there's
it just exposes the underlying problems of like, why is she selling lemonade to pay for her mom's cancer treatment? Oh, because like there's like healthcare is like for rich people only, or
yes,
art is for rich people only.
Yeah, and then there's the other issue. It's like, do I create limited quantities for my, like, how does a fan tell me like your music like saved my life, and then I throw them like a piece of meat and watch them all fight over it, and I'm like thank you for engaging with me, or like and that's the thing. It's not even my piece of meat. Kings of Leon is selling like digital album art as part of like their NFT. Like, is the artist cut into that? Like every time there's a resale, the Kings of Leon gets like a 10% kickback again. So it's like this endless royalty rate. Like that's great, sure, whatever, good on you. But like, what about the person that actually made it? If I'm throwing the piece of meat out to my fans and it has my name stamped on it, but I didn't cut the meat, like it's just exploitive, isn't it? I feel, again, it's early days, and I'd be willing to have a conversation with like a believer, I guess. But to me, it just seems, it doesn't feel like invention. It doesn't feel like anything new. It feels like buying in. It's like now, like artists have an opportunity to be like shitty rich guys. Like I don't I'm sorry. Like I don't know how much I want to do with it. To a broader point, it's International Women's Day, right? And we have, and I've been talking with my partner Chelsea about this quite a bit. this NFT thing, it feels ultimately like a cosmetic fix for what women should really actually have, which is financial autonomy. If we want to celebrate women, I don't need a Spotify ad with Kim Gordon's face on it. You know what I mean? Like, I need them to have money in their pockets in the same way that, like, women 100 years ago couldn't get divorced and were just beat by their husbands because, like, I have no access to education. I have no access to money. Like, I can't be on my own. And so long as we have these things like Spotify and these things that are soul sucking and there's no safety net for artists, it's not going to be like a contemporary of ours. It's going to be someone that's 15 right now that in 4 years when they're 19, is going to have some terrible office experience with like a producer, or like a Dr. Luke kind of character, or like these people that like they have there's no strength because there's no financial strength. You're still under a bind. And this NFT thing is like another thing that like capitalism throws at you to be like you're not in a bind, like here's an opportunity right here. And furthermore, if you don't take the opportunity, well, that's on you. Like as an artist, and this, like you're not only the musician, but you're oftentimes the graphic designer, you're oftentimes your own publicist, your own marketer, all these things. Like I don't want anything to do with this. What I want is to be compensated fairly for the thing that you're sucking from me, and then to leave me alone with these lofty ideas of again, like lottery. It feels like that. And maybe that's closed-minded or something, but I think there's just like, it's a cosmetic fix, and it trickles down. And if we want artists to have power, if we want women to have power, if we want women to have safety and security and all this stuff, like financial autonomy, please. Otherwise everything is exploitive, and you're going to have another Harvey Weinstein. Like, it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen, because you're going to be conforming to the pressures, trying to get like your feet off the ground, because no one will give you your fair stake. It's just, sorry, see what happens. But
no, this is great. I'm so glad we asked this.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that's just, again, surface level from what I've seen. When I see, which artists are profiting from it early on, they're artists with like huge financial backings already. They're like billionaires.
And being bought by like venture capitalists who, it's not like your fans buying shit. It's just fucking investors, and it's like just keep, pulling money at the top.
Your fans can't afford it. Yeah. And the whole thing just feels like, and again, like I don't want to, and I don't even really want to come down on artists, because I feel like so many people have been boxed into this thing. And I think that, like, especially for visual artists, I think that perhaps this is a way to subvert the bottlenecking of galleries and things like that. And so again, I don't want to hate on your hustle, but like, I said to you earlier, we look at these huge music models that we exist under, and use. Again, not anti-futurism, not anti-streaming. Just it needs to be presented in a fair way. And when, people will say like, well, how are we going to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, bonded labor existed for hundreds of years, like sharecropping existed. And in that system, people were like, well, I don't know, like there's no other way.
Right. And it's like there's this like ignoring, or there's like, it's like these tech companies that are treating music like it's this free resource, and they're just like exploiting that to sell their tech. Like, the reason that iPhone has, a streaming service isn't so that you'll hear more music. It's so that there's something that you can you have a reason to buy an iPhone. You know, they're just like they're selling tech. You know,
yeah, so they can farm your data too.
I mean, it's all secondary, and I guess I just want to know, in terms of the rhetoric that's being said, who are we serving? Is the broadscape of artists, are we really determining the market? You know, is this really like a free egalitarian thing, or will we see people at the top take the first swing and reap everything from it, and people on the lower rungs not have the clout or the attention or anything that it takes to have like your painting fluctuate with like upward momentum? I don't know. It just these cosmetic fixes. That's all I can really describe it as. Is like we're not going deep enough, and until there is an overhaul, until there's someone in the room that's like, we need to even these scales just a little bit. My God, you know, like the musicians union, you know, like not asking for really a whole lot. Like the penny of play thing is like, it's pretty fair. Like you still end up a billionaire, you know, like, and we can and golf clap for you, sure. But like, you know, I haven't been to a doctor in 14 years, you know, like you know, like quite honestly, and Deafheaven, by my estimation, does well. And for a lot of people would think that like we're riding high, you know, and we are in a fortunate position. We're much more fortunate than a lot of artists, but even us go through this. So I think about people below us, you know, I think about like people like starting to get their like foot in the door, like, man, they're taking the bread out of your mouth before you can even bake it, you know, like it's just, anyway. And NFT just feels like a bunch of guys in a room were like, let's throw them this bone and watch what happens, you know? And like, and it is interesting conceptually, or like the idea of like a new currency and all this stuff. Like I guess, you know, I don't want to be like stuck in the past, but if we're gonna form something new, like let's really do it. Otherwise it's not invention. It just feels like another thing. It feels another way for people that have money to make more while everyone else is like, you know, fighting for the scraps.
Yeah, it's like technocratic, like there's an app for that culture, you know, just like these like kind of like cosmetic things, because people in power, they want the like they want to push the cosmetic fixes, you know, they want the like girl boss shit, or like representation, rather than like actual systemic changes. There's no, you know, they're like, people in power want everything to stay the same because they're in power.
Yeah. I mean, you know, my friend Ellen Rogers, who's a really amazing photographer, she's doing her dissertation on the sad girl, on the historic sad girl. And I feel like it's so reflective today. Like this is what people want, clearly, you know, even though there is a guise of like you said, like girl boss and all these things, like until we give people real financial autonomy, until we can really distribute this to artists, they will always be under the foot of someone else. And you can say Me Too as loud as you want, but it's cosmetic, you know. And I'm talking about like on like a corporate level, like there has to be more, you know, or it's all just performative. And this NFT thing feels performative, you know. It feels like, you know, like if you scratch enough scratchers, you're finally going to hit the jackpot. And it's like, what about just providing a normal life? Richest country on earth, you know, like there's so much money, and you know, most people don't see it anyway. we all know these things. I don't want to get on like, I didn't mean to get like on a tangent or anything, but
No,
I think
it's interesting.
I think you said a lot, and I don't know. It's I feel like it's something that I love hearing people talk about, and I love talking about on the show, but I kind of don't want to just like beat people over the head with questions.
Stone Zone in chat mentioned the Adam Curtis doc, the Can't Get You Out of My Head, the BBC doc that he just made, which is, you know, in some ways appropriate.
Old systems of power.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in an even more cliche way. I mean, it really feels like, you know, hypernormalization, where like you're looking around at like empty office buildings and et cetera, but there's this weird, again, speculative investment economy that's like business is booming. But like, right. I don't know, but where's the tangible, where's the tangible result? Like right. Nothing feels material. It's just in this ether. Again, though, I would love to discuss it with people that have maybe a more positive outlook, but understand what I'm saying, or have it be more of a conversation. And I think as it continues to go and grow, which of course it will, those conversations will come more into light. And this is just overview of what I've seen. And I'm certainly not the most educated in the room. But yeah, it's initial thoughts. Those would be it. Sorry.
That's exactly what we're shooting for here. So thanks for coming on, G.
Hey, it was my pleasure. I want to end this by saying, whoever did your theme song is a great soloist.
Couldn't agree more.
Amazing chops, and I hope that they
just kind of the whole package.
Just they deserve a lot.
Yeah, let's shout out to Mr. Deranged.
Mr.
Deranged Strangler. If you want to check out his music, it's available on YouTube. Is it available on streaming platforms as well? I'm not sure.
I wouldn't know, but I think it's just on YouTube.
Okay. Well, Deranged Strangler, beautiful intro and outro song. Let's play it right now for the fans. And thanks again, George, for coming on.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Cheers.